Hey guys, how is everybody doing? I talked about the original 1979 Mad Max, so here are my thoughts on its sequel-ish, Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior. Now that because I say sequel-ish, the original idea for Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior wasn't always meant to be a sequel because apparently, the original Mad Max didn't have its US release until 1980, and it was like an Australian release back in 1979, which was a huge profit in Australia. But when they tried to when an American company bought the rights to that original Mad Max and they tried to re-release it and have the voices dubbed from the Australian accent, that didn't do too well. But since they still had the rights to this movie, they decided to make a sequel, but at the same time, not since the first movie didn't do so well in the U.S., they decided to do basically a brand new movie in a way, to where they titled it the Road Warrior, which was a sequel to Mad Max, but they decided not to keep the title of that, so they decided to they from the original title, which was Mad Max 2, the production company wanted it to be titled The Road Warrior because why would anybody want to watch a sequel to Mad Max if if that movie didn't do too well and not a lot of people have heard of it at the time. So, in a way, this is kind of like an Evil Dead 2 situation where you have that original movie and the way it ends, it's like, oh, there's a lot of possibilities there. But then when you get a sequel, it feels like a reboot. It tells like a brand new story. It does something new. That I always compare it to Evil Dead 2 because that's basically what this movie is in a way. So, yeah, it's a nice little history there, and it's something I liked learning about when I watched the version of this movie when it gave an introduction by this one guy. I forget his name, but yeah, it was very interesting to learn the history and the backstory on the making of this movie. So I really enjoyed seeing that. It's a really cool backstory. So yeah. So anyways, nowadays it is called Mad Max 2 because it's very clearly a sequel to that, but they just didn't want that title there. So yeah, nice little history, and I like how throughout time more people acknowledge the movie. So anyways, enough stalling. Here are my thoughts on Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior. Starting off with my positives on The Road Warriors, something that I really loved about this movie is how they were able to bring everything to life, down to the costumes, down to the vehicles, down to the landscape, down to the area that we're mostly in throughout the rest of the movie, to where it's like a kind of like a sanctuary area to where there's like not a lot of people there, but it's like an area. It's like it's a very small base in a way. And I thought the production company did a production of this movie did a fantastic job bringing everything to life, especially the vehicles. This movie came out in 1981. And the way they were able to bring those vehicles to life is very impressive to me. Because when you look at this movie when you look back at this movie, it's like, wow, that's really well. Because 1980. This is when practical effects were the only way to do things, and that definitely shows that because it just looks like they just took cars and side by sides and they just ripped them apart to make them look damaged and old and like they looked like they were stripped of parts. They did great with that, and the costumes themselves, I thought they looked great to where this movie does a better job of showing you that this is in the far future and that these outfits are like damaged and old and looked like they were taken off of car parts and all that. It looked like that people just try to find clothes wherever they could. I thought they did a great job with that, and like the way that they were able to build out this landscape to make it look banded and it looked like an apocalypse like world. I thought they did great with that. The way they were able to bring everything to life in this movie was amazing to me, and it's something that I just absolutely loved the entire time I was watching this movie. Speaking of that, the wasteland in this movie I thought was better utilized, and I thought it did a better job of like introducing you to that, and like how it's like this desert-like world, and like there's nothing left, and like people are driving on the roads, and just everything around you is like basically a desert, and there's abandoned cars everywhere. Where they like again, they do a better job of showing you like how this is like in the far future, like an apocalypse-like film and all that. And I really enjoyed that. The wasteland itself is great. I loved it. I thought this movie did a better job introducing you to it than it did in the first movie. I'm sure as we go along, it'll show you different things and different rules because this is the second movie after all, and it's still building out this world. So yeah, I really liked the wasteland. I liked how they built it out more in this movie. I really enjoyed that the landscape itself and how it was brought to life once again. I thought it was amazing. I also feel this movie does a better job of really introducing you to this world. It was one of my issues with the first movie is that, along with the Wasteland thing, this movie just does a better job of introducing you to this world and to the rules of and these people and all these fucked up things that happen. Like I felt this movie did a much better job of showing you this world, introducing you to it, because the first movie, it doesn't really feel like a Mad Max movie. Like it doesn't feel like an introduction to this world the proper way. And then when you get to this movie and you really get to show what George Miller's idea was for this franchise, it does a better job with that. It does a better job of showing you what this world is, what it's about. Like I love that, and it just did a much better job of just showing you what this world is and what its rules were. My brief introduction into this video where I talked about the history of this movie and how it was made and how it was like meant to be like a reboot and like an Evil Dead 2. I like that. I like how the movie feels like a reboot in a way to where it tries to departure from that first movie. It tries to get away from that first movie and tries to like exclude it in a way, but at the same time they have things in there to where they kind of hint at the first movie. I really like how they try to departure themselves from that first movie and try to do something new and try to do something different to where even if you've never seen the first movie, you can honestly just put this movie on and not have any knowledge of that first movie. You can just put this movie on. Like this movie was, it looks like I honestly feel when you watch this movie, this was George Miller's original idea for this world and for this franchise, I feel. And I felt it was better that. Like, I honestly feel if you've never seen that original Mad Max and you've only seen great things about this movie, and then you watch it and you're like, oh yeah, it's a good movie, like, you don't even need to be knowledged of the first movie. You can just put this movie on and enjoy it for what it is. And I felt it did a good job on that. And I really enjoyed that. For someone who believes that that first Mad Max is an okay start to this movie, and I don't care for that movie too much. I thought this movie did better on showing you this world and how it just departed from that movie and just felt like a creative reboot in a way and tried to restart this franchise in a way. Because you can look at that first movie as like a student film, as like kind of like Christopher Nolan's The Following, to where it was just showing like what you can do as a director, what you can do for this franchise. But then when you were given a bigger budget, you can make this franchise bigger and better, and that's what I love about the movie. And the action in this movie is amazing. From beginning to end, the action that we do get to see is amazing. Especially in the beginning of the movie. Like, props to the stunt performers in this movie. And I don't talk about stunt performers much, but after The Fall Guy, I kind of, like, to recognize it a little bit more. But, like, especially in the beginning of the movie, excuse me, um, in the beginning of the movie, like, when cars are crashing into, like, abandoned buildings and crashing into, like, old-ass cars just abandoned there, like, and there's like a part like at the end of the movie where this guy like falls off a bike and apparently like flew like 65 feet away, and that's a lot of that's a lot. Like props to the stunt performers on that alone. And this movie does take forever to get to that point of like the final action sequence, which is like 20 minutes at least. That whole action sequence alone saved this movie for me, which I'll talk about my issues later on. But when you get to that final moment of this movie, to where it's like nonstop action, it's like this is awesome. Like the entire time you're sitting there, you're like gripping your seat. You're like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like when people die, you didn't expect that because like I like that about the end of the movie too. Is like it feels like there's risks there. Like if people can die, like fuck, Mel Gibson's character alone could have probably died then, but I already knew he wasn't because he's in the Beyond the Thunderdome. But yeah, I really love that, and the final action sequence alone was my favorite part about this entire movie, and probably the main reason I would rewatch this movie. I fucking love that moment so much. So yeah, action in this movie, it's amazing. I've heard it's nothing compared to Fury Road, but like Fury Road is like nonstop action for what I hear. So yeah, action in this movie alone was fucking awesome. But now moving on to my negatives. Now, when I'm talking about this, it doesn't mean that they're dislikable, and that's the characters. Again, not because they're dislikable, it's because we don't get any information about them, no backstory, no character arcs, nothing. They just give you these characters and it's just like, oh, he likes this and that. It's like, well, I don't know his fucking name. Can you give
Who the fuck is this guy?
me his name, please? Like, they don't even tell you. It's just like, oh yeah, here's this random guy. It's just like, what the fuck's your name, dude? Like, who are you? And again, not because they're dislikable, it's just like they don't have a backstory. They don't really have a name. I don't know if that's what it was meant for, but I don't know. it's weird because I just didn't care for the characters, and when they died, it's like, oh, I didn't expect them to die, but at the same time, it's just like, do I need to feel emotion, or do I need to feel sad or something? Because I don't really know these fucking characters, I don't really know who they are, and if you ask me if, like, one character died that we met earlier, I wouldn't care. The only character that we really get to know is the guy that tried to jump Mel Gibson in the beginning of the movie, the guy that's on the helicopter at the end of the movie. Like, he's the only character that we really get to know at the end of the movie. And like at the end of the movie, like there's like this girl that he ends up getting with at the end of the movie. It's like this girl just showed out of fucking nowhere. Like we don't even know who this girl is, and she just showed out of fucking nowhere. It's like, who are you again? Like when did you show up? I don't know. It that's kind of my issue when it comes to George Miller. He doesn't really care about character development. All he cares about is high tension action, which I'm not complaining, but I need characters to enjoy. I also believe this movie has like a huge issue of getting to the fucking point of why we're here. We're here to see action. Now, I don't know if it's because I walked in with a different proper expectation, because when I walked into this movie, I was thinking great sequel and great action. That's what I was thinking. I kind of got that, but this movie just took forever to get to that point. It just like it felt like at the beginning of the movie, it's like, oh fuck yeah, this will be awesome. And then it like stops for a minute, doesn't do anything. There's literally just a part to where Max and the guy that tried to jump him are just sitting on a fucking log, watching this area, watching the villains of this movie, like just watching them. And they're not doing anything. And they literally just have cutaways. And there's like a part where they just cut away and just Max is eating dog food. It's like, what are we doing anymore? Like, can do something. And then when it finally gets up, and it's like, ooh, 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 and it's like, oh, we're not having fun anymore. Shit. It's like, and it took forever. And I was like, okay, can we just get to the fucking point to where we need the gasoline? Why are we fighting over gasoline? I don't know. You know, this entire movie is about fighting over gasoline and trying to get it. Is this what America is gonna look like if Biden gets reelected? All in all, guys, I do prefer Mad Max, the Road Warrior over the original movie, but I still don't love it. We're going to a good point there where I'm really enjoying it, but I do like the movie for what it is. But I'll be completely honest. The only reason I would probably ever rewatch this movie is for the final 20 minutes of the movie. That alone, that entire action sequence at the end of the movie was amazing, and probably the only reason I would probably rewatch it. So. Maybe if you didn't like the first movie and you want to see a kind of like a creative reboot in a way, maybe you'll like this movie more. But maybe if you loved Mad Max, then I can definitely see you loving this movie. But if you didn't care for the original one, give this movie a shot, but maybe you won't care for it either. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think about Mad Max The Road Warrior? Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Do you like this movie? Do you not like this movie? Do you prefer it over the first movie, or do you prefer the first movie? Let me know in the comments below, and we shall talk about it. If you like this video, like it. If you love it, subscribe to the bell notification so you will get notified for all of my latest videos, and for the rest of my Mad Max review series and my ranking on Tuesday or Monday, whenever I see Furiosa. But thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you all in the next video.